Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Steve Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili Gianarakos. How you doing, my friend? Wow, I almost screwed that up.
Hey, I'm doing well, Yariv. Flyers news is slowing down a bit, but as promised, we're still here every week with a new episode. So excited to talk what Flyers news there is and some playoff hockey, and we're gonna have a good episode, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Yeah, you said it. It's we're not at the slow period. It's like during the playoffs, there's some stuff to talk about. Then it ramps up for the draft, free agency time, and then after like 2 weeks of free agency, it's just crickets for like a month and a half. But we never have a hard time finding nonsense to talk about. We were still doing 2 hour episodes when there was no news, which yeah, but I guess I'll announce it now because we were just talking about it. I'm excited about it. So we just for those who are waiting for the episodes on draft content, we are already booked. We have already booked Steve Cornianos, who you guys can check out OMB Puckcast. He had an episode with them for a pre-draft show. We are doing ours the week before the draft, so we're going to be recording it unless something changes. Hopefully not, but we're booked for the 18th. So we'll have it out 18th at night, June 18th, and then we're going to be doing an episode with him immediately afterwards on July 2nd. So we'll have kind of the before the draft. We'll go deep dive into everything, most likely, all top 60 talk. I don't know how much we're going to do beyond, the first two rounds, and then we'll deep dive on the players that the Flyers got and just bullshit with Steve just because he's awesome. So for those who are looking forward to that, that is coming. And we're both really pumped to have him back on.
Yeah, and I'll be back from the draft as well
Right. Sorry.
for that episode. So it'll be fun to just see kind of what happens at the draft. It's always a crazy weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be some trades. You never know, right? So
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting period for sure.
Right. So Vasily will be boots on the ground in Vegas, which is really exciting. So we'll have that coverage of there as well. And again, make sure to follow him on social media because he'll have like a bunch of updates during the actual event.
Yeah, usually I try to put videos of the prospects that the Flyers draft and
Yep,
all the questions and stuff. So yeah, follow me on Twitter at Flyered Up if you want to, keep up to date with that type of content when we're at the draft.
for sure. And hopefully we will have some Mitchkov news to talk about by then. We have no idea, but would be nice. Before we get deep dive into everything, I just want to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, on iTunes, give us a rating there if you can. If you're listening on YouTube, hit the notification bell for notifications. You guys have been amazing with the subscribers of late. We are so close to 1,000. We cannot wait. This is the closest we've ever been, obviously. But as we're recording this, we're 75 away from 1,000. So if you're not subscribed yet, again, the best way to support us is to help us get to 1,000 subscribers. From there, we hope that our channel can grow. They say your first 1,000 subscribers are the hardest. And again, been 4.5 years. Vasili's been here for like 75 to 80% of that so far. So we've been grinding away, just chipping away, trying to get to 1,000. We were getting so close. So thank you all for your support. You guys have been amazing. And keep listening because we're going to keep going, like Vasili was saying. And also shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks. They are now open once again. They have been remodeled. They are doing their cheesesteak thing. Make sure to go to to 4th and South when you're in Philly and go get yourself a cheesesteaks from Jim's. And also shout out to Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Challenge your insurance company, have them double check the work, make sure that you can, have another set of eyes on the, estimations they give you and their assessment. So again, hit up Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to be talking a little bit of news. We'll talk some Flyers numbers. We'll talk some potential off-season stuff, and then we'll do a little bit of draft talk. We'll talk about the Phantoms a little bit. We'll end with some prospect stuff, and then we'll have some prospect stuff. Then we'll end with a little bit of playoff talk at the end as the playoffs inch towards the finals, getting closer to the finals. And I almost can't wait for the finals, Vasily, because like that means we go right to off-season talk, and like that is sometimes the most exciting part of a hockey season is like
Yeah, exactly.
the build up for what's to come.
Well, just seeing what happens with the draft, it's always a huge thing for most teams. And for the Flyers specifically, right, a rebuilding team, the draft is a really big piece of
Oh yeah.
their plan and how they want to build this team going ahead. So it's going to be great to get into that type of stuff. And the offseason is always the funnest time of the year, right? Like, as much as we say that you have to watch out for rumors. It is fun to talk about rumors. It's
Yep.
fun to talk about trades, especially for a podcast that we do
Yeah.
weekly. So it makes it more exciting for us. It makes the conversation more exciting. So finals can't come soon enough, despite the fact that I love playoff hockey and love watching, the playoffs and seeing it
Yeah.
unfold because the stakes are at the highest level. It's the best type of hockey you can watch ultimately, but hopefully we don't have a really long next couple of series so we can kind of get there a bit quicker.
Well, we'll say this: the draft is coming on the same day, no matter what. I like Game
Exactly.
Sevens, though. I gotta say, I
Yeah,
like
I was
Game Sevens, and
hoping
looks like we're gonna have some.
Yeah, I was hoping Dallas and Colorado would hit a game seven, but I don't know at this point. I mean, it's still a close series, but who knows
Well,
what's going to happen.
yeah, it was surprising to see them drop 5-1 the other night,
Yeah.
and but I mean they were missing Taves.
And
To
Nishushkin.
Yeah, Nichushkin going back into the program after just coming out, dude. Which, look, I have some people who are in recovery in my family, not my immediate family, but like new family, and they're long time in recovery. Relapses are part of the process, so I
Yeah.
assume he relapsed, which is crazy because he was playing really well. Maybe he was partying too hard. So, best of luck to Nichushkin in his battle with addiction. It's not an easy one.
He's the
So
leading goal scorer of the playoffs,
that's
which is
it's
nuts.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
which shows, how seriously they take this. If you're willing to pull out a guy for that reason, it also must be pretty bad.
Yeah, we'll go into
Um,
depth on that when we do the playoff
yeah,
talk,
yeah, we
everybody.
can go into that. Okay, so first piece of news, we're gonna rehash it again just because it's exciting. But it's been a few days now. This is not immediately after. We might be getting even a little numb to it. It is a small little breadcrumb. They might mean absolutely nothing. Again, take a grain of salt with all Mitchkov news because we really don't know. The Flyers are not going to announce it. But, we want to bring it up here just because it is a trend in an interesting direction and nobody really seems to be disputing it. There does seem to be some conversation. So I guess these are two pieces of news together. One, we talked about Matt Mitchkov posting a picture of himself working out in a Flyers shirt. He did once again post another image of him working out wearing Flyers shorts. This wasn't common prior. So it is something to look at. It might mean absolutely nothing, but it is interesting to see, all of a sudden because he's kind of it feels like he's advertising it to some degree. And then Matvey Mitchkov's trainer, also in an interview, and I think Appleyard posted this. So apologies, I forget the source, which is not appropriate, but I'll just hint at it here. Mitchkov trainer was kind of quoting that he is hoping that Mitchkov comes over here now. And
Yeah.
again, kind of I fill in a second. It kind of indicates that they're probably having conversations, the two of them, right? Go
Yeah. So
ahead,
just to
please.
jump off, actually somebody DM'd Mitchkov's trainer on Instagram
Oh, okay.
asking him, is Mitchkov coming to the Flyers this season? After basically, I think it either was his trainer or Mitchkov himself posted a picture of them together and he was
Yeah.
wearing the Flyers hockey shirt.
Yep.
And then the trainer stated in the DM, I hope so. So that
Right.
was the
Okay.
source of where it came from. And I guess if his trainer is stating, I hope so, there must be something going on where
Right.
maybe the situation he's in with Ska really isn't the best for his development and his long-term future as a hockey player. Who knows what the relationship is? Like we've said before between Rottenberg and Mitchkov. And as I've said many times on the podcast, the past couple of episodes, I think that's kind of the crux here, and that's the crucial aspect of this whole situation. If that's an untenable situation for both Mitchkov and Rottenberg, they cannot work out, either playing together and kind of being around each other on the same Scott team, I just feel as though Michkov is not looking to be loaned out once again to HC Sochi. So if that were going to be the case, and for some reason was not going to play him, like he chose to not select him for the under 25 Russia national team, then I could see maybe Michkov's agents or whoever's close to him and close to the situation trying to arrange some sort of buyout, if possible, of his
Yeah.
contract. But also, obviously, we'll see how it
Go ahead.
unfolds, right?
Do you think that, if I remember correctly, I think we were just talking about this before we started recording, but didn't Frank Cervalli hint that there is, this might have just been pure speculation on his part, but that there is movement from like the actual side of like Michkov's agent and his people potentially working on an agreement with Ska to get him out, that he's kind of hearing that, or did I make that up off the top of my head? I've
No, you're correct, right? So I actually
Yeah.
have an article here in which he talks about this, and it's from May 11th, so it's really recent.
Mhm.
Considering when everybody will be listening to this, it's going to be May 15th, so it's really only 4 or 5 days old. But this is what Frank states in his article. Um, it's a combined article. It goes over the sanctions to Ivan Fedotov, which we'll get into, and it talks about how the Michkov situation might be impacted potentially by those sanctions that the double IHF handed out to Fedotov and to CSKA Moscow. So this is what Frank states. He said, "Will these sanctions have any impact on the Flyers to potentially bring over Matvei Michkov? Technically, the two are unrelated, though it's impossible to say what the relation will be in the KHL and across Russia with the heavy sanctions Michkov is under. Sorry, let me restate that here. Technically, the two are unrelated, though it's impossible to say what the reaction will be in the KHL and across Russia with the heavy sanctions. Michkov is under contract with SKA St. Petersburg, a different club, through the 2025-26 season. The Flyers would love to get their hands on their top prospect, Michkov, who is one of the top players currently not playing in the NHL. Michkov was loaned by SKA to HC Sochi this season, where he collected 19 goals and 41 points in 47 games as a 19-year-old. Michkov fell 1 point short of Kirill Kaprizov's record production for a U20 player in KHL history, and he did so despite an unusual set of challenges. NHL
Playing
teams are
less
not
games,
yeah, exactly. NHL
considerably
teams
less.
NHL teams are not permitted to communicate directly with KHL club officials regarding players under contract, but the belief is third-party officials, including Michkov's agents, are in touch with SKA St. Petersburg about Michkov's future, whether it is possible to negotiate a settlement or buyout of his current contract, which would pave a path for him to arrive in Philadelphia ahead of schedule. So based on what Frank's hearing, it looks like Michkov's agents are in talks with SKA regarding his future, and if there's some sort of negotiation that can be had to buy his contract out. Who knows? I'm sure all these talks are fluid, and then the Flyers are being consulted about what's happening by the agents as they talk with the, SKA. So for Frank to report on that, he's a very trustworthy source. There must be some sort of fire and something going on, obviously, between Michkov's agents and SKA. Whether that materializes into a buyout, who knows, right? They might bring forth the option and they might say, hey, what could we do to potentially stop a buyout, right? Like maybe SKA says, hey, we really want Michkov here for a year. Like we didn't do well in the playoffs last season. We want to make sure we kind of get back to the Gargarin Cup final. Maybe they make some promises to his agent saying we're not going to loan him out, right? Like he's going to
Yeah.
get top 6 minutes despite the terrible relationship with Roman Rottenberg. Like who knows what type of guarantees are being made, or it could be the exact opposite situation where Michkov is looking for assurances that, hey, am I going to play on SKA this upcoming season, or am I going to be loaned out again? And they might be saying, well, you have to earn your playing time. Like we're not going to make any promises. And then that's where the conversation kind
Well,
of divulges, right? And gets into, oh, well, if it's not going to be made a promise that I won't be loaned out again, then I really want to get bought out of this contract because I think the relationship with this coach is untenable. And just look at me not being picked for this under 25 national team. I have worries that I won't play again for SKA this season, and I really don't want to be on a bottom feeder like Sochi once again.
well,
So yeah, I think really it's a fluid situation, and we're gonna find out in the next couple of weeks here.
yeah, and we know for sure that the chairman of the team had conversations with Michkov about him going back to Sochi, right? He
Yeah,
referenced it in that interview. and how that's a place that he doesn't really want to go back to, not just because they're bottom feeders, but also because his father was found potentially murdered there. We don't really know the story behind that, but probably not somewhere he wants to be
Yeah,
for
very
another.
traumatic.
Yeah, he's already been there for 2 years. And again, we brought this up on the last episode, but Michkov played in the KHL prior to those 2 years for Ska before Rottenberg was on the team. So something clear, like this is a guy who should have been playing on Ska's team. He had 5 points in 13 games as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Like he's already turned 19. If he's not playing on that roster, it is head scratching at this point. Point per game wise, he was, you know, definitely in the top 50. I don't remember exactly where he was, but he was one of the top players in that league at 18 years old. So something's got to give. Something's got to give here. And he'll be 20. I think his birthday is December 9th. So he'll be 20 in the beginning of next season. So, I don't know. We're gonna find out this summer though. I do think that by the draft we'll probably have a better idea if he's coming over or not. It could go past that. It's possible. But we'll hear more, and maybe some of the insiders will get word of something beyond that. But so far, it does seem like things are trending. And like I said on the last podcast, right? It doesn't indicate that he is coming over this season exactly, but it does indicate that he's probably leaving early. Like the idea that he's going to finish out this 3-year deal, I think, is very unlikely with everything we're hearing.
Yeah.
If it's not this summer, it's probably next summer that he's coming over.
Well, I would look at it this way, right? Let's say he plays for Ska next season. He somehow doesn't get loaned away. They're able to work through the relationship, him and Rottenberg. I'd imagine the way it sounds, those two don't really like each other. Maybe he can really only handle 1 year of dealing with Rottenberg. Like, who knows, right? He has one season there, plays fairly well, says, get me out of here, right? I've kind of done my obligation to this team, right? I was able to play a season for them at least, and that's it. So we'll see where it goes. It's going to be really interesting. And hopefully we get some news right in the next month or so. That article, that Match RU article, did say that the deadline was around the end of June 30th to be
Right.
exact. So we'll see if
Draft.
that's the case, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see if that's the case and see if any news comes out around the draft here.
I'll say this: the worst case scenario is that he stays with Scott and Rottenberg doesn't play him, which
Well,
is what
obviously,
he
yeah,
did to him this year. Is they played
yeah,
him what 3 minutes in the one game he played,
and then scratched him.
and then scratched him, and then sent him out.
I mean, I don't know how it would work logistically, but I wonder if something like that does happen, let's say to start the season, for example, if they cannot terminate the contract or buy it out or what have you. In the offseason here, I wonder if something like that happening sparks the buyout maybe at the beginning of the KHL season. Like, I don't know how that would work. The Flyers could obviously add any player from the KHL to the roster, as we've seen them do with Fedotov last season. So maybe it gets accelerated that way even quicker. Who knows, right? I
Yeah,
guess we'll have to wait and see.
that would be
But
that would
it'll
be
be
an
interesting.
yeah, that would be an unfortunate situation. The one thing I do want to make sure is that he is playing, and he is playing 18 plus minutes.
Well, that's the
Um,
best thing for a young player in their development,
yeah, even
especially
if it's
one of
for
his talent
social.
level. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, I guess let's talk about the Fedotov thing. So the new report came out, and this is just unfortunate. Ivan Fedotov was punished consequently. Wow, screwed that word up. After Siska was punished and fined for disobeying the IIHF agreement, not allowing him to come over and play for the Flyers in his contract year. They have been fined for that. I think it was $1 million. They are disputing that. And Fedotov, which I would hope they're disputing this, has been banned from world competition in IAHF for 3 years, because he was the player involved in that. How is that fair to him, considering he's under the legal litigation of the Russian government? How is he going to leave the
yeah, that wasn't
country?
his choice, right? They
But
like forced him into subscription into the military. So
yeah, but I suspect that the reason they did it is to twist the knife on Russia and to be
Yes.
like, we're not just going to punish you, we're going to punish the player too. So any player you do this, you won't be able to leverage those players in our world's competition either. To kind of like give extra motivation to follow the agreement, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's to really stop the players maybe from even agreeing. Like if they were going to come to the NHL, for example, in a similar situation, and then their team in the KHL said, no, like we don't care, like we'll violate the deal, then the player will say, well, then I won't get to play on the international level. So it might be more of a concern to the player. But I think really it's the double IHF disciplining the KHL,
Yeah.
disciplining Siska Moscow specifically, obviously. But it does suck for Fedotov, right? He's banned for international play for the next 3 years, including the Olympics, which he did play at the past Olympics for Russia. Like I'm assuming now with NHL players returning to Olympic play, I mean, they're going to have Shesterkin and Sorokin to pick from. Like, I don't know if Fedotov would even be a
And
choice of Russia.
Vasilevsky.
And Vasilevsky, yeah, I even forgot about him. But you never know what's going to happen, right? Like, if Fedotov somehow goes into next season and plays like one of the best goalies in the NHL, I'm not saying that's going to happen necessarily, but you really never know. Goalies are
Sure.
voodoo. So it's totally possible. Maybe Russia would have considered him, but now he's obviously not going to be an option. I don't think they're going to be hurting because we listed all those goalies that they can put in.
I
Aside from the
guess that
fact, even Bobrovsky, but obviously it sucks for Fedotov because he's not going to really be able to get back to that Olympic stage or even
yeah.
world championship stage with Russia um, during his prime, right? So
I
it's not
wonder if
a
there's
good situation for him.
oh,
But
I wonder if there's room to dispute that one, and maybe that's something the Flyers can get involved in if they want to help him out and be like, hey, look, like
I'm sure
what
there's
what did you
appeals.
want the guy to do? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's an appeal process. I don't really know what that is, but
Mm,
with stuff like this and rulings like this, there's always a room to appeal. One thing to add as well, he also gets a 6 month ban at the club level should he ever leave the NHL. So let's say if he's going to leave the NHL moving forward at any point for some reason, he's also banned from playing in the KHL for 6 months. So I would imagine with that, he's going to try to stay in North America moving ahead
I
if
wonder
possible.
if like
Um,
something bad happens and the Flyers buy him out, then he's just like screwed. I guess that would be that would be removing himself from the contract though. So
Yeah, in a sense, I mean, he wouldn't be able to play in the KHL for 6 months. Siska Moscow also is punished here as well. They are banned from international transfers for 2 years from August 11th, 2024 to August 10th, 2026. And the Russian Ice Hockey Federation is fined a total of 1 million francs, which is $1.1 million
yeah.
US. So obviously not a good situation for Fedotov, not a good situation for the KHL or Siska Moscow, but they kind of brought it upon themselves, not allowing him to leave when he initially signed the contract to go to the Flyers in May of 2022.
When he
So
had
this
no
is,
contract with Siska too.
yeah, exactly. So they pretty much tried to put their foot down, said, no, you're not taking our Olympic level goaltender, basically the backbone of their team, which I could understand why. But in the end, they pay for it, right? So really, it sucks for Fedotov, but maybe this is something and it's something that's beneficial for KHL players in the future. Where let's say a team wants to do a similar thing and not let them go to the NHL, they might think twice and say, "Well, does this benefit us? We're going to get fined probably, and we're going to be banned from international transfers if we do something like this, just
Yeah.
like Siska was." So it might be a benefit for KHL players in the future where um, Fedotov's kind of the sacrifice here in a sense, right? Where he's
Poor
kind of
guy.
going through this, which sucks, but it might be a good thing for players in the future, which is the positive way to look at the
Well,
situation, I guess.
at least in his case, he's getting paid.
A good
Um,
amount too. So
yeah. So I guess along the lines of Flyers goaltender, quick update on Sam Ersson. He was selected to play in the IAHF for Team Sweden. Uh, look, I don't think this is really a big deal. I guess it's a little surprising considering how much hockey he played, but there already has been some time in between that, and he's a young developing goalie, so it's going to be good. And he's not going to be playing a lot. I don't even know if he's played a game yet for
yeah, he
Team
has
Sweden.
actually.
He has.
He
Okay.
was he was in net this past Monday in
Okay.
his first appearance. and Sweden beat Germany, and their record's 3-0-0. I believe he stopped 15 of 16 shots in the game
Cool.
and had a shutout for about 47 minutes there. So he played well, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see how many games he gets into. I don't know the other goalies that are on the roster for Sweden, so
Is
we'll
it Philip
see.
Gustafson
I
and
believe Gustafson for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I forget who the other guy would be. It's escaping me. Forsberg? Anton Forsberg, maybe?
I'm searching it up right now.
Yeah, I guess
Let's
it's not that
see.
important, but it is nice to see Ersson recognized as one of the best Swedish goaltenders in the league because he really is, and I don't think his numbers this year justify were I don't think they represent his play this year. He did have some flubs of games, but he also played exceptional at times this year. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of
Oh,
how his role
Jesper
to.
Wallstead is the other goalie.
Okay.
So with that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of a rotation between Urson and
Yeah,
Gustafsson.
yeah. I would imagine. Yeah. Hell of a rookie year for Harrison. Wild year.
Yeah, he played really well for a rookie. Like for people saying, "Oh, he can't save a puck, can't save a beach ball," like and in that stretch where he wasn't playing well. It's so tough to be a rookie in the NHL. And I think he acclimated pretty well considering the
Yeah.
fact that he wasn't expecting to lose his goalie partner who was shouldering more of the load and kind of be
He,
pushed into the starter role. So it's
yeah, he
kind of
thought he
nuts
would play
to
like
see that.
30 games this year. He played what, 48? Was that it at the end?
Yeah, the most he ever played in his
Yeah.
career, which
Almost
is
double.
nuts. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think an experience like that can only be beneficial for him, right? He's getting used to playing a larger workload and getting used to what it's like to be a starting goalie in the
Yeah.
NHL. So I think it ultimately probably helps him actually going into next season, if anything, right? You never see players have no struggles in their career, right? Some adversity is a good thing to overcome. And I would say for Urson, it probably was a good thing for him to have a little bit of a taste of adversity to start his career and then kind of work through that a bit.
Sure.
But yeah, he even played more games actually, or even he played 51 games. So that's 11 more than he's ever played before in his career. And that's at the NHL level, which is the highest level. So crazy.
Yep. Yeah, that is a crazy transition. I'm excited to see where he is next year. And I guess somewhat related news because the reason Harrison was playing so much, there is a bit of update on the Carter Hart situation. Rick Westhead had a tweet out. I'll let Vasili go through it, but again, it doesn't really clarify the situation beyond just surface level, but it is the most we've heard since the players have left.
Yeah, it's definitely a significant update. So here's a tweet from Rick Westhead. He stated, "Lawyers for the five former 2018 World Junior hockey players charged with sexual assault are scheduled to appear virtually in a London court this morning." So this was on Tuesday, May the 14th, as you all are listening to this on the 15th. It's possible a date for the players' judge and jury trial will be set today. As we're recording, nothing has been set. So I imagine we might hear in the coming days or maybe the coming weeks here. I'm not really too sure, but as of now, no official set date for the trial or anything like that. But
Yeah.
it looks like they're making headway, and there probably will be some sort of official date in the near future, based on that. Anyway,
Yeah, and that makes sense.
it's been a while at this point, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's been a while and quite frankly, something's got to give with a little bit of news, right?
yeah.
It can't just continue in this direction. So,
I would say just with the way the Canadian legal system works, just because a date's being set, don't expect it to be anytime soon. So I would preliminarily, if I had to guess, I would say you'll probably see the trial like late 2025 is my guess.
yeah. Let's hope. Let's hope it's earlier rather than I'd rather just know what the hell is going on than have
Yeah,
this
it's gonna
like
be
sitting
it's
in the
gonna be
background.
interesting to see what happens. That's for sure. I mean, we're gonna monitor as it goes along. There's gonna be tons of news as all this stuff unfolds regarding
Yeah,
that. Everybody's really plugged in.
absolutely. So I guess the next topic I had in here was Flyers at 5-on-5, and I was just on Quant Hockey like the other day, I like to go on that site to look at stats. If you guys are not aware of it, it's just they have a lot of really good breakdowns, point per game, stuff like that. And the one thing that was really, really clear to me is how much the power play significantly hurt this team. And if you look at their numbers 5-on-5, they're pretty much like top 15 in everything. They had an exceptional penalty kill. And if you look at like the amount of power play goals scored, what did I had have here? Um oh, fuck. I know it's goals. So power play goals scored, they had 31, which was the lowest in the league. The 30 at 32. Columbus had 32 goals. Buffalo had 37. They were 30th, and then 39, 40, blah blah blah. Top of the league, Tampa Bay Lightning had 71, more than double. And if you look at the Flyers, like actual goal scoring per game, they were where were they? They were 27th at 2.87. Like literally, you think about that drastic of a terrible power play, they would have been easily, if they had a halfway decent power play, would have been probably at what, 3.13, 3.14, which would have put them right in the middle. And we've been saying on this podcast, like, you need to be in the top half in
Yeah.
both power play and penalty kill. And like goals against per game, they did all right. They were number 15. Again, would have put them about even. You look at their goal differential, was a minus 26 in the end. Like, think about minus 26, apply 26 power play goals onto their power play, which still wouldn't have
Yeah.
put them in the top, but it would put them in a much more respectable place. They break even at that point, and they're in the playoffs. I mean, it really shows that the combination of losing Carter Hart and having the drop off of the goal, the save percentage, the overall team save percentage was near the bottom of the league. I think it was bottom three at the end of the year. So losing Carter Hart and the power play were the two biggest indicators of why this team, not only didn't they make the playoffs, but why they weren't securely in a playoff position. And if you look at the team in the beginning of the year, when they had a slightly better power play and they had better goaltending, they were like fighting for number 2 in the division. It just shows like how much of a small margin it is from being a mediocre team to being a bad team to even being like an above average team. And the reason they weren't above average this year is literally because of losing Carter Hart and the power play being incredibly dysfunctional. And I just like I even looked at like Travis Konechny's numbers. Like if you look at his 5-on-5 scoring, he's like in the top 30, like in that range, top 30, 40 top scores. If you include the power play, he's not even in that conversation. And he led our team in points. It just shows that like this team not having an adequate power play creates like an illusion that they are much worse offensively than they actually are. And I am still under the belief that their power play can be better with the talent they have in-house with the current players. The jump from penalty kill with essentially the exact same roster of players went from being bottom, what was it, bottom 10. I think they finished 23rd, something like that, the previous year. Maybe it was even slightly worse, to being top 5. I think they finished 4th in the league in the penalty kill. That didn't just happen because of Ryan Poehling and Garrett Hathaway. Sorry. Like, you can say they're good penalty killers. They are. They don't jump your team from 23 to top 5, right? Like, the Flyers can find their way even without adding talent. Just create, and they're not doing the little things right on the power play. If they can adjust that, I think they're a better team next year if they can fix the power play just off of that sheer fact alone. Having Fedotov there, hopefully being better than Sandstrom and Peterson, then once again you're in that conversation of Flyers will be in that at least exactly where they were this year, if not better, if they can actually resolve these things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean it's really hard to argue, right? That the Flyers or 5-on-5 versus their power play is night and day, right? Like 5-on-5, we saw the Flyers generate their most scoring chances typically. Usually they would outplay most other teams at 5-on-5, and then special teams, at least the power play, would sink them in a sense where it would almost act like a negative momentum changer, where the team would be rolling, they'd be playing well at 5-on-5. They get a power play where most teams would be like, thank God we got a power play, time to capitalize. Whereas the Flyers are probably like, holy shit, we got a power play. Now we're going to like lose momentum versus gain momentum like most teams would. So I think the main thing for the Flyers is they need to find a way to change the power play similar to what they did with the penalty kill this past season. You need to find a way to change the power play from being a momentum drainer to momentum builder, where going on the power play actually brings some positive and like a positive result to the team going forward, right? Which it should, because you're a man up on the other team. If you're not going to actually score on the power play, you should at least continue to generate scoring chances and build the momentum that you were building 5-on-5. Whereas it was the opposite, where the team would be rolling at 5-on-5, they go on the power play, wouldn't be able to generate anything, and then it would actually kind of end up being a negative, where they'd go back in a 5-on-5 play. The other team would gain the momentum from a strong penalty kill, and then kind of turn the tables on the Flyers. And I think there was a lot of situations this year where the Flyers might have won more games if their power play could just generate even some chances, not even score, right? And there was several games where we saw that was not the case. They would go 0 for 5 on power plays, and they end up losing by 1 goal, stuff like that. I think one thing to really look at is PDO, right? So PDO is the combined power play and penalty kill percentage. So usually the way to look at it is if your combined power play penalty kill percentage is 105 combined, you're a really good team, typically a playoff team. The Flyers penalty kill was 83.4, which was, let me check here, I believe fourth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fourth best in the league. Everybody knows the power play was worst in the league for the third straight season, which is a record. Not a good one. But anyway, so combined, their 83.4% penalty kill and their 12.2% power play, their overall percentage there is a 95.6%, which is 10 back of that 105 that mark that you're looking to hit. And typically when you're at 105 or above, you're a really good team, you're a playoff team. Let's say even if the Flyers up that power play from 12.2% to 22.2%, 10% is a big jump, but that brings their PDO to 105. It puts them in that sphere, right, where they are one of the best teams. Even at a 22% power play, they would still 22.2%. They would still have been 14th best in the league. So it's not like they're world burners or anything, but even a middle of the road power play probably gets this team into the playoffs, which we stated how many times this season. But I think the main thing for the Flyers, it won't even be to up that power play by 10%, because I don't know if that's really going to be a realistic goal unless you add some serious talent. But if you get a Matt Michkov to come over, for example, you never know what can happen. I mean, he's a really great power play player, so I'm sure it's going to boost the team. But I think for the Flyers, the main thing will be on the power play is just to make sure that it can become a momentum, like a momentum changer for them in a positive way again. Because at this point, it is a complete negative, right? Like most teams, like I said, when they get a power play, they're looking forward to it. It could be a positive thing where they change the game with a goal, or at least generate scoring chances. So when they go back to that 5-on-5 play, they're continuing to play well, continuing to generate chances. So I think that will be the main thing for the Flyers. I don't know exactly what's going to change, because it looks like Rocky Thompson's back. Or will be back. They said they're going to look at some sort of committee by approach, or approach by committee situation, where they try to combine a bunch of their scouts and players, or former players within the organization that used to be really good power play players, like, for example, Daniel Briere, Patrick Sharp,
on deck.
Yeah, John Leclaire.
Situation.
Sure, I understand that approach, but my thing is, these guys were in the organization.
Yeah, but we don't know if they were. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we don't know if they were involved in fixing it.
No, I definitely not. But like, if I'm the Flyers, I would have started this the middle of last season, I would have said, "Hey, we stink.
Solid point.
Let's call up these guys or at least get their input. They're
Well,
here anyhow." But
maybe it's one of those things where that's going to be done in the off season, right? Like when
yeah,
they're
get
actually
some of their
together,
input.
the coach is not on the road. They're going to be in meetings, like they'll be watching film together and talking about what they did wrong.
Yeah,
One of the positives of the power play, which is kind of a weird thing to note, is that the Flyers were tied for second best goals against on the power play, and only the Islanders had one less goal than the Flyers. They only gave up 4 shorthanded goals this year,
that's pretty good. Yeah.
which is ironically good for a team that was that bad on the power play. And this is actually even more interesting. So, and this is just kind of a weird thing. And again, it goes back to the 5-on-5 play. The Flyers finished 4th in the league in shots for. Okay, it's overall shots for. They finished 2nd in the league in shots against. Okay. The differential per game that they had, so their shot differential per game was second highest in the league behind the Hurricanes with 5.914. The Hurricanes were exceptional at 7.7. Everybody, all the other top teams, there's Florida. And listen to the reason I say this is listen to the top teams they're with. Though there are some outliers in here, it's not a complete indicator, but it is again. This just goes to the lack of power play success and how it clearly, really, really hurt this team. But the teams are looking at Carolina is number 1, Flyers are number 2, Florida is number 3, Edmonton's number 4, 5 is LA, 6 is Colorado, 7 is Dallas, 8 is Toronto. And
Yeah,
again,
a lot of top teams
they
there.
doubled Toronto in that
Well,
differential.
you know what? That's not really surprising to me, to be honest, Yariv, because at least the way the Flyers played this season, their style of play, especially at 5-on-5, not on the power play,
Right.
but their style of play at 5-on-5, and when they were playing their game and playing well, they were typically trying to overload the team with shots. That was
Yeah.
kind of their
Which is
goal.
what pissed me off about the power play.
Yeah, exactly. Because they wouldn't really shoot the puck. They'd hang on to it for way too long, pass around the perimeter, get poke checked, or the pass wouldn't go through. And then you have to turn it around the other way and try to enter the zone
Double
again.
clutching like
Yeah,
fucking job.
I mean, especially with the talent that they had, like it's not like they had a lack of talent or anything, but they didn't have, that power play quarterback you can point to and say he runs the power play. It was kind of by committee in a sense.
Yeah.
I really find it puzzling that they didn't have the same thought process of, well, at 5-on-5, what's our goal? We're trying to, play off the rush, play really quick up the ice. And when we are in the zone, we're just really shooting the puck from anywhere and trying to create rebounds, create havoc in front of the net and score like greasy goals. Why wouldn't you just adopt the same thing for the power play when it's not working and say, hey, well, we can't score for our lives, our life dependent on it on the power play. Let's just throw everything towards the net and see what happens, right? Crash the net. Like you'd think that would have rang a bell and they would have maybe tried that, but maybe it's something they were trying to implement with the players and they just weren't executing it on the ice effectively. Like who really knows what's happening in these meetings? But I just thought it was a weird situation where at 5-on-5, the team is putting everything to the net, and then on the power play, they're never shooting the puck. So
yeah, I don't think the Flyers would have gone deep in the playoffs or anything like that, but I do think they would have had considerably more success than the Islanders and
Washington,
the Capitals. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. At least maybe 5-6 games versus getting swept. So
Yes, I think they would have been very annoying to play against in the playoffs. They wouldn't have the talent to go deep. Like they're not built to go deep. And again, goaltending would have been suspect also, just because Fedotov is just coming and Ericsson's a rookie. But at the same time, like if you really look at the way throughout the entire season this team played, even at the very end of the season, yeah. I was thinking about it. It's really Detroit and the Flyers clearly should have been the teams in the playoffs. And both of them experienced a massive losing streak right before the playoffs to make them miss the playoffs. Because Detroit was a better team than you could say all three. They were there with the Flyers the entire time and then had a massive losing streak.
Yeah, they were in the third spot in the Atlantic as well, right? At a point. So
they both experienced a similar thing. So we'll see. I just thought it was interesting to dig into some of those numbers. And the one thing I noticed already, I was thinking about how I'm hearing Frost and Farabee trade rumors again, as is tradition to want to trade guys. And it just kind of made me think that, like, the same people preaching that they want to rebuild have no patience for an actual rebuild. I think a lot of people think a rebuild is to get rid of stuff for other stuff. And I don't really think that that's what it is. And this season, I don't want to speak for you, Vasili, but I've been saying this since Tortorella got here, and we saw the effect of what he's done on the ice. And it's not just a change of player thing. Like, I
Yeah.
get that there are ability to trade guys for other guys. I even listening to like Toronto Maple Leafs people like speculate what they're going to do with that team. And like, I don't even know if I really like, I get why they're saying what they're saying. I'm not saying it's like irrational, but I'm not convinced that they might make themselves a worse team at the end of this, trying to make changes for change's sake type of stuff. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's a lot of what I'm hearing here with like the Frost and Farabee. Look, if you're gonna package together to get a more elite player, I understand why people are bringing that up. But I do feel like people are looking at guys who are young on this team who are developing by 99%. The majority of players go through. I don't care what type of bullshit people want to feed me about guys hitting their prime in their 20s. I'm going to leave the names of people, but I've heard people say that, and then I've heard them say, oh, but they have their second prime. No, you were incorrect about what your initial assumption was, is that players hit their prime in their early 20s. It's just not true. Even the best players in the league get better as they hit the
I
late
would
20s.
say 26 to 30. Like you start entering your prime around 26
Yes.
or so, even
Right.
25 potentially, like if you're one of those elite players.
Yes.
And then considerably get better. And then I think you're kind of exiting the prime like 31,
There
32,
the
33.
the outliers are guys who are elite at 19 to 21. And the other end of the outlier is guys who are elite like Mike Knuble post 30, which
Yeah,
also
exactly.
happens. It's just unlikely. But the majority of that group, that 80%, sits at 26 to 30. And I look at Frost, it was just his birthday as we record this today. I think he just turned what, 25, or is he 24?
I think 25.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he just turned 25. He literally has gotten to a point where at certain points, he paces 70 points a season. You look at Farabee, who's 24 years old, and he's third on the team in points. Like, why would you not just have a little bit of patience,
Just to
see
see,
if
yeah,
these guys pan out
as
to
they
what
enter
you were
their
hoping
prime, right?
to be? You don't need a team of superstars to win a Stanley Cup.
Well,
You need a full good roster. If you
I
can
think,
find a
sorry, Reed, go ahead.
superstar let me finish this point. If you can find a superstar in trading one of these guys, I understand. But a lot of what I hear from people, that is not what they're even talking about. It's like, let me trade this project for your project. And that I don't understand.
Yeah, to your point, Yariv, I think a lot of people don't realize that a rebuild doesn't necessarily just mean roster overhaul, roster subtractions. There's a lot of other
Yes.
things that go into it, like organizational philosophy, cultural
We
philosophy,
saw
which we've
that this
seen.
year.
Yeah, which we've seen with the Flyers, right? Like look at the culture and just the organizational philosophy and just everything surrounding this team under the Chuck Fletcher regime versus the Daniel Briere regime. It's a complete 180 into how the organization is handling things, how things are structured within the organization, and it's helped the Flyers
Yeah.
considerably, right? So it shows it's not just on ice. But what I think it is I think people look at teams like I don't know, like a Buffalo, like a Colorado, like other teams who went the route of, okay, we have to literally trade everybody and be a trash team for 5, 6, 7 years, and then we rise above. And look at Buffalo, for example. It never happened for them, right? Like Colorado, it ended up happening, but it took about 10 years. So it kind of just shows that that way of doing things, it isn't the only way to
It,
do it. And a lot of the times it actually might not even work. Like look at the Sabres, right? How many years they tear it down and had top 5 picks and it hasn't paid off at all.
look
So
look at Edmonton versus Vancouver in the playoffs.
yeah,
Like, That should be the rudest awakening to every single person who keeps thinking you need the best players in the world to win.
You need
Like,
depth
I,
ultimately in the playoffs.
you need, it's what I've been saying for since I started this podcast. You need an entire roster of good players. That is what you need to win a championship.
Yep, look at Dallas right now. Look at their team.
That's
Do they have that, bona fide star
They
or
don't
that
have the
bona fide
best
elite
player
player?
in the league at any single position. They have a
No,
lot of really high end players. They have a lot of great talent. I'm not
exactly.
diminishing their talent, but there's not a single player on that team that you could say is the best player in the league at their position.
No, but they have multiple elite players like a Hintz, like a Robertson, like a Heiskanen. And I think
And
it
good
kind of,
vets.
and good
Suter,
vets that are really good too, right? Jamie Benn,
Ben,
Pavelski,
Suter,
Sagan,
Sagan.
Duchesne. Like, there's so many players, but I think that's where you look at it. Like, look at Edmonton, look at the Leafs. They kind of stacked with the elite guys, but the depth isn't up to par with some of the other teams, like a Dallas,
Right.
for example.
Even
And then
Boston.
like a Boston, so and like a Florida. So I think you look at that way and you kind of look at two different ways of building a team. And I mean, who knows the way the Flyers go here, but I think they're going in a way where depth is prioritized over, we need to have four superstars, four elite guys, then we kind of fill the roster with whatever else we
It
can. Um,
it look, that can work to a degree also. Like you look at Colorado, who was also a deep team, but okay, good luck having the best defenseman in the league and arguably the best center in the league.
it's
Like good
tough, yeah.
luck finding that combination. Like it's such a rare, and even they're not like their high end talent. Still, Dallas is getting the best of them. You
Yeah.
know,
Right, because
and
those
it's
third line, fourth line matchups, Dallas has the edge. And you look at time on ice, there's only a fixed amount of time you can roll out
right.
those top guys
I
over and over and
I
over
think
again.
I
So
think basketball creates the illusion, because basketball is a
yeah,
very
well, you
different
can
sport.
win with you can win like that with those
Right.
stars only,
In
basically.
basketball, it's like it's not like hockey. It really is not like hockey. It's like you need superstars, and you really need like 6 to 8 guys who are good, and you can have like a bunch of extras on
Yeah, as
top
long
of
as your
that.
bench is decent, those
Yeah.
6 to 8 guys that are really good, and then your 1 to 2 superstars, they can carry them.
Right.
Whereas
But
hockey,
they
it's a little
but
bit
they play
different.
80% of the game.
That's what I mean, because you're not playing as much. It's not to say the ice times are equal because your top players are always going to have 10, 15 minutes more, but you can't put them out nearly as much as the NBA does with their superstar type players or their, initial lineup versus the bench roster. So
Yeah. And again,
it's a tough
when
situation.
Colorado won, I mean, their team top to bottom was deep. The
Yeah.
only thing you could say is arguably they didn't have an elite goaltender. But I'll say it again, you don't need an elite goaltender to win a cup. You need a good goalie
Yeah, exactly.
or
And
two good goalies.
to go back to Frost and
Aiden Hill.
Farabee, to go back to Frost and Farabee, like I think it's natural that there's going to be rumors for trades with these guys. Reason being, other teams are interested in them because they also realize, hey, these guys are just about to enter their primes. Why wouldn't we want to trade for them and see them explode
Great
on our
point.
team,
Great
right? So
point.
I think that's where it comes from too,
Like,
and some of the rumors
you know,
start off. But like, look at it this way, right? Like Frost had 41 points this year. 46 points last year. He's 25, about to enter his prime, right? Look at Joel Farabee. I believe, let me see how many points he had this year. One
49, I
sec.
think.
He had 50 points this year,
50 points.
39 points last year, right? And he's 24, going to turn 25 next year. Both these guys just entering the prime. So, for example, you see Frost put up, 46 points last year, 41 this year. Farabee 50 points. Like they're just entering their prime. If you in your prime years are expected to maybe go up about 20 points, let's say, that would make Frost, if he's entering his prime and he adds 20 points, about a 65 point player. Farabee about a 70,
And
75
that's with
point
a
player.
bottom of the league power play.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So if you think about it this way, like if the Flyers were to trade these guys away as they're entering their prime, I'm not to say that I'm against it, but if they're going to do it, it's going to have to be, at least in my eyes, for like a bona fide star player.
But let's get back to the beginning of why I brought. I agree with everything you said. the reason I said what I'm saying is because I already see the impatience. Like all these people who talk about
Yeah.
how they want to rebuild, you don't actually want to rebuild. You want excitement. And I empathize with it. I don't think it's crazy, but a rebuild is patience. A rebuild is picking your window
You have to let your young
properly.
guys develop also,
Yes.
right?
And picking your window and not going at, like, I see a lot of people want to like add Mitch Marner and all that. And I get it. I get it. He's young enough too. Like I totally get where people are coming from. But like that those are not deals that like rebuilding teams make
Yeah.
typically. They're just patient and they add a bunch of players, hopefully young ones, prospects, guys who maybe didn't have the best career somewhere else that they can, like a Nichushkin, like guys who can revitalize their career with you and get more out of players, like what we did with Ryan Paling, who
Yeah.
went from a player who wasn't worth much to most NHL teams to a guy who probably could get you back a second round pick at this point
Yeah,
with the type
it's
of
gonna
season he had.
I think what it is this is the way I'll put it, right? And I've heard this over the seasons as well. Oh, trade Farabee, get some more draft picks if this is a rebuild, get a first rounder for him, or trade Frost, try to get a first round pick.
And just start over.
Everybody loves draft picks until the player's selected. Then when he gets
Right,
selected,
they start
nobody seems
bashing
to
him.
care anymore, right? But you have to remember these guys are getting selected at 18 years old. Unless it's a top 5 pick, the chance of them being a finished product or a guy that's going to come into your lineup and have an instant impact and be what they're going to be in 5, 10 years from now, it's just not going to happen, right? You need to allow for these guys to develop. You need to allow for these guys to go through growing pains. It's not a linear thing for most guys. Usually development's a bumpy road along the way, right? There's waves involved, there's ups and downs involved. And I think at least for Frost and Farabee, we've seen them at this point go through a lot of ups, a lot of downs. And I think we're coming to the point in their careers where they're finally getting to that prime. Wouldn't you want to see these guys hit that prime on the Flyers versus trade them away? Like, I totally get it. Like, I'm open to any trade. Like, for example, if you're trading Farabee and Frost and you get Brady Tkachuk back. If you're the Flyers, obviously you're going to listen to a trade like that, right? You'd be stupid not to. But I think for Philadelphia, unless they're getting star level players back for these guys in some sort of package, probably you will see them with the Flyers moving
So
ahead. And for your point to go back around to the whole rebuild situation, it's clear to me that yeah, there is an impatience level, right? Like there is a way to do this. Trying to trade young assets that are just entering their prime to speed this up, I don't think that is the proper way. You have to let your young players develop and see exactly what they might become. And then if you aren't satisfied for what they become at their prime, then you can explore the trade. So
yeah, yeah. And I was thinking about Mitch Marner as well. Like, so Toronto scored the second most amount of goals per game in the NHL. And some of that is attributed to Mitch Marner himself.
yeah.
How many points is Marner putting up on this Flyers team? Is he hitting 100 points? Because I promise you, Travis Konechny on the Toronto Maple Leafs, as they were constructed last year, is exceeding 68 points.
Yeah, especially with their power play. I would say the only
And
thing
their
that
ability to play make, like
yeah, of course. I
playing with
think
Nylander.
the only thing that Marner probably does for the Flyers immediately is he probably makes their power play a lot better. But I also think that there's a significant gap in terms of the talent level he was playing with in the Leafs versus what he was playing with on the Flyers. Like he's not playing with Austin Matthews on the Flyers, right? Let's be
Right.
real
That
here.
that
So,
that's what I'm saying. It's like that has a compounding effect. It's not he's not gonna go down to be like a 50, 60 point player. He's still gonna be a point per game player on the Flyers. I
but he
believe
might
that.
not be 100-point guy
Right.
exactly.
That's what I'm saying. It's like what we saw with Johnny Gaudreau, which is what I anticipated with Gaudreau. Is like, yeah, he's Gaudreau in the right situation, 100 point player. That's why when I look at Travis Konechny, people keep talking about it as a second line player. That is bullshit. You put him on a legitimate top line. He has just as much of a chance to hit 90 and 100 points as the other guys who did it. There are plenty of players in this league, JT Miller, who are not top tier players in the NHL. But is Zach Hyman really a 50 some goal scorer if he's not playing with McDavid and Drysaitel? Probably not. He's still a damn good player.
Yeah.
But is he
But
going to be one of the top goal scorers in the league?
there
Probably.
always has to be somebody that you need to compliment these guys. Like
Right.
you shouldn't
Right.
punish the player because they're the complement
But
to a really great
it
trio, right?
it's that surface analysis thing where it's like, well, I want the grass is greener on the other side. Look how many points. Like that doesn't translate the exact way people are saying it does.
No,
Does the guy
exactly.
have a lot of talent? Is he valuable to the team? Yes. But is it gonna just come over here and it happens sometimes,
But not always.
Like if you look at Panarin's situation, he went to a better team and
And got even
experienced
better.
better
Yeah.
results, you know? He's also one of the best players in the world. So like that's even more of an outlier player. Those outlier players exist. Like Connor McDavid is an outlier player. Nathan McKinnon is an outlier player. Like there are players, regardless of where you put them, they will put up elite numbers. But what if Sidney Crosby wasn't on the Penguins this year and he was playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs? How many points does John Tavares put up with the Flyers? He had 80 points this year, I think. Something like that. Damn good season. But how many points
Yeah.
would you put up with the Flyers? 60, 65?
Yeah. I mean, like, let's see, he had 65 points in the Leafs, so on the Flyers might be even closer to 50.
There you go.
Um,
That and that it, Steven Stamkos. Like people want to go out and get Stamkos. I love Stamkos. I love him on this team.
but
But if
take
you
him away from
think yeah,
Kucherov, I don't know how many
if you think he's
points.
gonna have 40 goals on the Flyers with the way we played this year, probably not.
Yeah, so obviously got to be realistic, right?
Yeah.
When you take
I'm
that into account. So
I That's why I just say it's not about chasing the highest point producers in the league. It's about getting as many good players as you can. That is the goal.
yeah.
And allowing them to be a team that plays to the details because the team that plays to the details goes to the Stanley Cup. The ones that rely too heavily on their offensive abilities, a la Edmonton, Toronto, you won't get far. Toronto's best games, in my opinion, the best games they played were without Austin Matthews. And it's not because of Matthews, it's because the team stuck to the details because they knew they couldn't outscore the other team just inside. They're like, and you've seen this happen to the Flyers in the past. We saw it happen without Sean Couturier. The Flyers knew that Couturier wasn't in the lineup. They played a great hockey game as a team, and they played really well.
Well, that's what the playoffs is about, right? You have to be a cohesive five-man
The
unit. It's about playing
the
as a team.
the
So
best game they had this year was against the Dallas Stars. That was by far that was like the
yeah,
pinnacle of how this team
outshot
played.
them 15-1, I think, in a period or
they
something.
they were, and again, I don't think it was Dallas's best game. We obviously know Dallas is a phenomenal team, and in my opinion, definitely the favorites out of the West to come out at this point. But if you look at the way the Flyers played them, they played them exactly how you ideally want to play a hockey game. Like that, the way they played in that game was playoff hockey. Flyers have the ability to do that. They just need to add more talent, fill out the lineup, and develop what they have internally. And then we'll see if we can get one of the best players in the world added on top of that. That puts you in the conversation of Stanley Cup contender every year. And that is the goal. That is why you want a Mitch Cobb and you want these other guys. And that's where like the Boston Bruins are kind of fading a little bit, right? They play a really great brand of hockey. They have a solid D. They have a talented team. You saw they're really good. But when they're playing another team who's playing that way, who has an edge in talent,
Yeah, they miss Bergeron, right? They need that top center.
right?
Like they need that guy to match up against
And
Barkov.
Krejci.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And again, this shows why the Flyers aren't competing for a Stanley Cup. You can't say on paper they have those things, but they can learn to play that way. And I would much rather have a Frost and Farabee who learn to play that way than another guy who can put up 50 points on Anaheim who has never learned to play that way. And that's why we're bringing Jamie Drysdale here. That's why they believe they can make Jamie Drysdale a better player because they were not using him that way in Anaheim. They were just throwing him to the wolves at 18, which we would have not done under this current administration that's running our team. That would have not happened. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the London Knights team. Um, so I did want to talk. Let's talk about this very briefly. I don't really know much more to say. Have we really thought about anybody like? Have you had any new thoughts? Let's put it this way, and I'll put it to you first. We have the names of Lawton, Risto, Atkinson. These guys are older, right? Is there anybody else that like the Flyers really would opt to move away from. Maybe Delorier. Um, I don't think Garrett Hathaway is going to be going anywhere this season. Potentially, if we're not good, maybe at the trade deadline, he could return probably a nice piece, especially if he has a season like last year. But I really am having trouble thinking like what players the Flyers are like looking to move on from. Is there
I
anybody
think,
else you could think of?
yeah, who you have listed like Lawton, Ristolainen, Atkinson, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, maybe Delorier just because it might be a numbers game and he looks like he's going to be like a 13th forward type of guy moving ahead. Frost Farabee, I mean, we've heard rumors. Doesn't necessarily mean they're true, but you have to list them just due to the rumors. I think
Sure.
another guy you got to add just with the agent change and the fact that it was reported by Anthony DeMarco, at least for Sean Couturier, that there are apparently is one team, at least in the West, that is interested in Couturier, but who really knows about
At
the whole agent?
50% retained.
Yeah, exactly. So who really knows about
Suck my
if
dick.
if anything like that's gonna happen? But you got to list him just because he changed agents. But I would say that's slim to doubtful.
Yeah.
Kind of like we have Frost and Farabee listed as doubtful here. Um, I would say some other guys that maybe might get traded, at least for me, could be younger prospects that you aren't aware of, like maybe a Brink, maybe an Andre. People might laugh at that and say, why would they do that? It depends what they're looking for, right? Like if they're trying to put a package together, for example, this offseason to land a number one center or even a number one defenseman, let's
Yeah.
say, or some sort of top defenseman, like you brought up Alex Petrangelo in the past. Um, I don't know what center they would target. Just off the top of my head, I'm kind of blanking. But if they're going to put a package together to acquire that, elite type of center, elite type of defenseman, I would argue you're going to probably have to put in a Farabee or a Frost, some sort of first round draft pick, and then you're going to have to add prospects. So you might see some sort of package deal like that. But if you do see the package deal, you're getting back an elite level player. So in the end, it's probably worth it on your end to go that route. So
Yeah.
you might see some surprises with young guys, right? Young prospects. Sometimes teams, if they're looking to trade that elite guy, it's for a reason because they need to restock their prospect pipeline, need to restock on some draft picks. So maybe look towards some of those type of younger guys that you might not expect. But I don't expect the Flyers to go and make a blockbuster trade like this. But you never know what's going to present itself in the
Yeah.
offseason. So
Like I can't
things
see
happen.
them trading Sandheim at this point. Um,
I
with
definitely
the
can't see
type
them
of
trading, yeah,
I,
York or Sandheim.
yeah, York
Yeah.
definitely not York, obviously not Drysdale. And then Nick Sealer,
They just signed
again,
him.
they
Yeah.
would have traded him already if that was an option. Like Zamula is somebody I could see them potentially moving on
But
from,
they
but
might just not sign him then.
well, he's an
Like,
RFA,
yeah,
so
they could qualify. But let's say they think, oh, like, you're not going to have a top six spot. We're going to resign Eric Johnson to be our seventh. Maybe
yeah.
you're the odd man out. So who knows?
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I think they're gonna look for I think they will look in free agency, but I think they're gonna probably follow the Ryan Paling model and look for guys who didn't have success or enough success somewhere, had promise at one point, you know,
See if
or
they can
still
rebuild their
show
stock, right?
right. Bring them into our house. And again, if you look at Montreal, they have done that, right? Kirby Doc being Matheson being another guy turned him into a 60-point defenseman. Like again, he's not like an elite defenseman, but he has an offensive upside. It's like I think they're going to be more exploring that type of route. And that's where like I didn't think they would buy out Cam Atkinson, but considering the lack of roster spots, I do think that there is a chance, like the more I think about it, just because of his
I could
age.
see it. I just also look at the wing depth. Like, look how many wingers that they have
Yeah.
coming up, even too. Like, is Tuamala like after the season that Atkinson had? Would Tuamala be worse than him? I know they stated they might think he might need another full AHL season, but with the way Tortorella seemed to be high on him and how long he stuck around in camp, like I don't know if that's going to be the case, right? So
Yeah.
like we'll really see, but yeah, it is especially on the wing, definitely a numbers game.
Yeah.
Because they have a
I
lot of wingers right now.
I see the Flyers trying to bring in people on a 1-year deal, like Paling, like a prove it deal. Um, And I don't think the Flyers are assuming that anybody from the minors outside of Andre is going to be on this team.
Yeah, I think that's a safe way to go about it, right? Like, why over project with some of these young guys when they might need some more time in the AHL? But I do think, for example, like if a guy like Tuamala goes into camp and absolutely kills it, like we saw with Brink, right? If he's one of their best guys in camp, I don't think you can ignore that, and
Yeah,
he'll
no,
probably
I
find
agree.
himself on the team.
I totally agree with that. But I think as like right now, they're going to be like, well, let them beat out
Yeah,
somebody
they're not
else,
penciling these
and
guys
we'll
in.
figure out how to get rid of them.
Yeah, for
Type of thing.
sure. Like
Um,
they're not penciling them in by any means, right?
yeah, I don't think anybody outside of Michkov could be penciled in to this
Well, yeah,
lineup.
if they can get him over, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right. Just want to remind everyone, please like and subscribe. Again, follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Give us a rating there again if you can, and hit the notification bell for notifications. All of that is the best way to support us. So thank you all so much for those who have done it. If you have not, please do it now. You're helping us tremendously. Okay. So there was another lottery draft. I had it open. Where the hell
Craig
is
Buttons, right?
Yes, Craig Button had a lottery draft. I like Craig Button a lot. I find him very entertaining. Do I believe in his opinions that much? Not really. I don't I don't find that he is very good at predicting like players' ceilings or where players are going. But he's got an educated opinion. He was a GM. I do like him as a person, and he
Really
really,
nice guy. Really
yeah,
nice guy.
yeah.
I
I
talked
think
to him
he's
at the
awesome.
draft. I
Yeah.
talked to him at the draft last year. We had a conversation about who he thought the Flyers should pick and who they would pick. And
Who'd he say?
well, he said Ryan Leonard, but he obviously didn't think that Mitchkov was gonna drop. This was
Well,
before the draft.
so I did hear him say that he thinks Demidov is a better. Why he even brought this up is a better player than Michkov, and I don't buy
Interesting.
that for a second. I've heard
I
other
don't
people say
either,
that. I
yeah.
don't buy that for a flying fucking second. And I'm sorry to curse. I've cursed several times, but like I've heard that argument on the internet, and I've heard that there's no reason he shouldn't be playing in the K. Okay, then why didn't he get loaned out?
Yeah.
How come
He's
Michkov played in the KHL earlier and was loaned out? Why didn't Demidov get loaned out?
Yeah, that's an easy thing to look at, right? Like, why did he play when he was 16 versus Demidov did not? So you could point to that, but yeah, like Button's a really nice guy. When you look at his rankings and like what's going on, I
They're not
mean,
that accurate. I've been listening to him for years.
yeah, like, and this is something that we've gone over for years, right? And it kind of shows in his rankings. He's not a guy that is really following these players and their seasons. He takes and puts more stock into
The
tournaments.
tournaments.
And this is why you see his mock drafts kind of all over the place because he hasn't watched these guys all season.
Yeah.
He's just looking at the tournaments. And it's easy for any player to get hot for 5, 6, 7 games and look like they
Right.
might be one of the best players in the draft
What was
and
the
then go
dude that
back to their clubs and not be good at
what was
all.
the dude that
Or
Edmonton grabbed at third overall? I can't remember his name right now.
last season.
No, a while back ago, and it was a complete failure. It had immense.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank and I have no
Oh my
idea.
God, what was his name? I'll look it up here. But you know who I'm talking about, right? He he was
Drawing a
taken
big
third
blank.
overall. He's a Finnish player, big kid.
Oh, Yessi Puliarvi. Yeah.
Puliarvi.
Yeah.
Thank you. I knew you'd remember.
I
That
need a
was
little bit of just a little
that,
carrot in front of me
yeah.
there.
And actually, if you look at the Flyers' second round pick from a few years back, Samu Tuomala, he had an exceptional tournament. Um, I believe he like was one of the highest point scorers in the tournament that he played in, the
Yeah.
World's tournament. And you see, it took him time. Like, it's best to look at the players over their full stretch than a tournament or the end of the season. But he's got to put a list together. It's an annual list, so we'll go through it here real quick. I'll name. Let's go. It's a top 16, so I'll go through the top 16, and then we can talk about it. Number one, Macklin Celebrini, obviously. Two, Artem Levshinov. Three, Ivan Demidov. Four, Anton Salayev. 5, Caden Lindstrom. 6, Tej Aginla. 7, Sam Dickinson. 8, Zane Perek. 9, Consta Hellenius. 10, Zeev Boyum. 11, Carter Yemchuk. 12, Jeff Luchenko, and that's who he has the Flyers taking. 13, Cole Iserman. 14, Turek Parashek. 15, Michael Branzig Nygaard, which I have heard his name come up quite a bit. And 16, Beckett Sinek, who would be playing for Oshawa against the London Knights, but I believe he was injured. Big loss for them.
Yeah. Obviously, like, it's not completely off the board. Like, if you look at his list, because like
Yeah, not completely.
all these guys in the top 10 are names we've heard, even from 12, even from 11, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yep.
The one off the board one obviously has to be for the Flyers.
Yeah.
In Jet Lachenko. I don't even know who that is. I haven't heard his name one time.
I have heard a little bit about him, but go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't heard of the guy once personally. Like, I'm not, locked in the prospects.
Having a big second half. Let's put it that way.
Was he in any tournaments recently?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't recall.
So yeah, I'm not sure why he puts Lachenko there. Like, maybe he has some sort of inside source that he knows the Flyers like Jet Lachenko. But I'd imagine that if that's the case, maybe they prioritize him with the second pick and don't go completely off the board.
That's
over
exactly
all these
what
guys.
I was thinking in my head.
Yeah, because
still have another pick in the first round.
But I can't see any situation where Cole Iserman's on the board and the Flyers are like, yeah, fuck Iserman. Let me pick Jet Lachenko at number 12. Like, yeah, I just don't see that really happening.
That seems like a Ron Hextall move.
Yeah, I love Jet Lachenko. He must have played for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Let me draft him. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just don't see the Flyers picking Jet Lachenko. If they do, like, I'll come on here and I'll come on here and sing Craig Button's praises 10 times over if they pick him. Like, I'll eat shit on here.
He wasn't even on I'm sorry to cut you off, but he wasn't even on Bob McKenzie's list.
Yeah, so I mean, I trust McKenzie more than Button.
Yeah, because he surveys the actual.
Yeah, and even Steve's list, this guy was nowhere to be found either. So I don't really know if in much projections, like in projections for the full round, is he like in the kind of like 25-30 range essentially?
That, or not I've seen him primarily around like past 20.
So yeah, in that case, I think maybe if Button is plugged in, let's say with the source at the Flyers, which he very well could be. He's been in, league circles for years. I would assume maybe they are interested in him, but maybe as, that second first round pick with Florida. But, if Iserman isn't around, I think one guy that the Flyers really might have their eyes on here is Sam Dickinson. I just look at the London connection and the fact that him and Bonk have played together a lot of the season. How crazy, well, not crazy, but how amazing would it be if you're the Flyers to potentially have a first pair that you graduate that play together from the OHL to the NHL at some point? I mean, that must be something they're thinking about, must be an attractive option. So I would think that Dickinson could be high on their list potentially.
I honestly, who I think is, and we did see it in the rumors, and the more I think about it, but Carter Yekimchuk, I think he is very high on the list, and
big hitter.
Just the nastiness and how teams really value guy. Like, you think about the value that the Chuck brothers have around the league, and their combination of skill with the nastiness, the hitting, the fighting, the grittiness in the corner. Now, I don't know to the level of eliteness this guy is, but again, 30 goals. 6'3", mean as hell, can skate. Like, to some degree, like if it was between Dickinson or Yakimchuk, I think right now, being completely ignorant and not scouting these teams, Yakimchuk on the surface level seems like the better pick. I don't know that for sure. Again, they're like identical in size, and they're both offensive defensemen. I'm a little hesitant with Sam Dickinson, even though he had a great season, just because, like, it's one of those things where, like, you were on a phenomenal team.
Yeah.
Like, they are, and watching those games, Bonk looks, in my opinion, much better than Dickinson. He is older, but Bonk seems to be a much more effective player in all situations than Dickinson.
I think Dickinson, at least for me and what I've seen of him so far, like he seems to be more offensive oriented versus defensive, where Yakimchuk, there's more defensive and he's more well-rounded defensively at least. And he outscored Dickinson by 1 point. But the one thing to note is the OHL is a way higher scoring league than the WHL. So he was able to do it in a league where they don't really score as much, and I'm not sure
30
how good the
goals,
Hitmen were
crazy.
this year. Yeah, I'm not sure how good the Hitmen were this year, but I do know obviously London is one of the top teams, so I think that's something you got to take into account. But I think both guys are probably on the radar. Maybe Yakimchuk just for the nastiness along with the scoring. Dickinson maybe for the fact that he's played with Bonk and you have that chemistry is already there, so that can be an attractive piece of it.
Yeah.
But I think both guys will be considered for sure. But I do ultimately think if Cole Eiserman is around, how could you pass on him? I
Yeah.
just think
Well,
the fact that he was projected to be a top 3 pick, not to say it's
sounds
similar to
familiar.
Couturier.
Does
Yeah,
it sound
it
familiar
kind
from
of
last year?
it sound well, yeah, Mitchkov, but I was gonna say Couturier, where Couturier
Yes.
was projected to be number 1, number
And he had
2, number 3
mono.
overall, had mono and then dropped. Obviously, not the same case. It's more for Eiserman the fact that he seemed to be a one-dimensional goal scorer, and they wanted to see more of the other aspects of his game. But I just think with him, it might be a sense of over scouting, where they had so many guys focused on him, and they're really just
He's
dissecting his
also
game.
he's also I'm sorry to cut you off, but he's also 2 weeks too old for next year's draft. Like he's
Yeah.
also one of the youngest in this crop, and that time, those 6 months, like that's a drastic difference. And if he was putting up these points and he was gearing up for next year's draft, the perception of him could be different as
Well,
well.
I just think elite goal scorer, right? Like, how can you pass up on that? Like, I think at worst, this guy's going to be like a 20, that like he's going to be a 25 goal scorer at worst in the league.
I
At
guess the
worst.
worry is that he becomes a Hoffman, which is a good player, but he bounces around for a reason. And
Yeah, I just think like if you have a chance to get him, I don't think the Flyers pass. That's my perception. And if you look at it right, like down the line, imagine putting a guy like Mitchkov and his vision with the shooter um like
Iserman,
Iserman, right? Like
yeah,
why would you pass up on something like that?
yeah.
So
I I
that's my
also notice
perspective.
I also notice he doesn't have Berkeley Catton on here in his top
Yeah,
16
which is
at all,
crazy.
especially for the
I actually that's a good point because he's pretty much on everybody's list. And a lot of people even
he's
think
also
that
outperformed all these guys.
yeah, a lot of people think that he should be higher. And the fact that
I've seen him as high as fifth.
that's what I mean. There's been some mocks that have had him in the top 5. Um, I
That's
think
to
the thing
all
with him
the
is the size, right? Like
yeah.
he's a little smaller. That can have an
Well,
effect,
Giroux is
but
small.
yeah, but he's really not that small. He's 5'11", like
Yeah, he's not.
based
Yeah, he's
on
not like he's not a
what it's
pipsqueak. He's
saying
better
there.
than he's bigger than Denver Barkey. But I look at this list and again, I don't really trust any of these lists anymore. I only Bob McKenzie's when it comes to like a mock. That's the only thing I
Yeah, well,
trust,
because
just
he's
because.
serving the scouts and
But
all that.
but
So
this draft is clearly like I hear people saying, "Oh, do the Flyers trade up?" Why? Why would you trade up? There clearly is zero consensus.
the
Like
only
the
the
only
only
thing worth trading up is one.
yeah, or Demidov. I mean, if you can get him and Mitchkov to play together, it would be pretty
But okay, but
appetizing.
what if you trade up to 4 and Demidov gets taken at 2?
Well, that's what I mean. You're gonna have to trade up and know that you'll get him, or trade up 2-2.
So maybe if like theoretically, if Demidov drops to let's just say 6th, right? Which is possible that he drops to 6th in the draft. Maybe a team goes, "Oh, we didn't expect him here. Let's see if we can grab that pick." That I can see, but a
Yeah,
trade prior to that, extremely unlikely. I think everybody's going to go into this saying, "Well, let's see who falls to us." Like I
yeah.
think for looking at these lists, it's like you're gonna get a guy in your top 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And even if he did fall to 6, like I'm looking at it, I can't see any way Demidov gets by Montreal, especially with what happened last
100%.
season. And I can't see Utah not taking him at 6 anyway. So
Well,
yeah.
he arguably, outside of Celebrini, he's got the highest offensive upside.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I don't think teams are going to be
potentially
scared of the.
higher than Celebrini, to be honest with you.
I don't think teams are going to be scared of the Russian factor this year. I think they learned their mistakes with Michkov, to
Yeah,
be
I mean,
honest.
look,
That's
you
my
could say that,
thoughts.
but like Salayev is also ranked high.
Yeah, nobody seems like there's any
Yeah.
issues to take him. That's
Would
what I
would you
mean.
want the
So,
Flyers to take Salayev if he somehow
for,
dropped?
yeah, like I've seen him mocked as low as like
I
that
saw it too.
10 to
Yeah,
13 range.
yeah, I've seen that.
I would totally take him. He's huge.
Yeah,
And people say, "Oh, it's just because he's so big. That's why, he's ranked."
unlikely.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't know what the offensive upside is going to be like for him because um not a lot of points in the KHL, but you have to factor in he's playing in a
He's a
men's league at
kid.
18.
Yeah, he's a kid.
None of these other players are.
Right.
So the offense might not translate from a defensive perspective. And you have to
Well,
think too,
Hellenius
like,
is.
well,
Hellenius is
yeah,
playing
but
against men.
Finnish league isn't on the same level as the KHL.
Sure.
That's what I want to caveat. But for Saleyev, my thing is you're an 18-year-old, you're adjusting to a new pro men's league. The last thing as a defenseman he's probably worried about is his offense. He probably wants to make sure he can defend
Yeah.
well first.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one thing. But yeah, if Saleyev's around, I would have to imagine the Flyers grab him.
I don't think he will be around. I think D will
Me
go
either.
above forwards and will drop forwards down this year.
Yeah.
I've seen it plenty in the past, and the fact that like I think Yekimchuk will probably get taken before 11. He's listed here at 11. I could see him being taken early. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
agreed.
these defensemen will get taken like in a row, like teams just loading up on D because when there typically are really good defensemen available, teams bite unless that forward is like a clear cut top line player. And outside of Demidov, like none of these guys necessarily fit that bill that like for sure they're going to be number one line guys. And even Demidov, like I've heard the opposite, though I don't really believe that. I believe from what I've seen from him, he's legit. My names are this. I have two defensemen that I want, and it's Boyum and Yekimchuk that I think could be available to us. And then the offensive guys are Iserman and Catton. That's how I am. I'm open to other combinations. I don't know these players that well. But just like looking at the size and skill of everything, like I said about Yekimchuk, Z Boyum just seems like so poised and savvy. And I'm biased because I'm Israeli, so I obviously love him. But just watching him play too, he seems to have like some kind of X factor. Being a Hobie Baker nominee, being above a point per game player in his first year in the NCAA, like winning a championship against a team that was ranked higher than them. All of that checks out for me defensively. Cole Iserman, exactly like you said. You just look, we passed on Cole Caulfield. He is not elite defensively. The guy puts up numbers in the NHL. It's something we really need. We have a second first round pick. We can get a much more balanced play later on, like a Jeff Carter, Mike Richards thing. Like totally open to that. And then what's his name? Bratton, Claude Giroux factor. Or Catton, thank you.
Yeah.
Berkeley Catton, Claude Giroux. He just reminds me of Claude Giroux. We need a guy with that skill set. I'm willing to take a risk on his size and wait for him to build up. I don't think he's coming to the NHL immediately anyway.
No,
that would
definitely
be my
another
next.
year. Definitely another year in juniors. I like that Yariv Bratton. You already created the nickname for him.
Yeah,
Berkeley and Catton together there. But
I did see Caden Lindstrom. I'm sorry, and I'll let you talk in a second. Caden Lindstrom is a name I saw that low at some point too, at 12, which that would also be ideal.
Are all over the place. I don't know if Lindstrom's going to drop that far. Like he's kind of been mocked top 5 most of the season.
I don't think he will either. 6'4" centerman.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but you never know. Yeah, like for me, I think my wish list ultimately would probably be Iserman, Saleyev if he drops, but that's probably not going to be going to happen. So let's go more realistic. So Iserman, for me, Berkeley Catton number 2, because I really like his skill set. If he's around, Dickinson third if he's around, Yakimchuk as well, and Zeev Boyum. Like any of those guys, I think I would be happy with.
Right. So why move up? We just named 5 guys we'd be very happy with that are all possible in our range.
Yeah, I think unless you really want to target a specific guy, and for some reason he's going to drop to 5 or 6, like maybe. But unless you know that's happening, what's the point, right?
I guess the argument the Flyers might love like Levshinov.
Possible, yeah.
I could see them loving him. You know what I mean? Like, but with the other names available, like I
But
don't know.
what like
It
but I've
takes a
seen
lot to
lists,
move up. It
yeah.
doesn't normally happen.
And I've seen lists where he's dropped to like 8, and even on Steve's list, he was like 13th. So like you just really don't know what's gonna happen here. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be one of the more interesting drafts in the sense of where
I
everybody's
think
gonna fall. I don't think anybody really has a clear picture on other
you
than
know what I
Celebrini and Demidov of where people are gonna end up falling.
you know
So
you know where I could see them move up? The second first round pick.
yeah,
That I
to
could
like
see. Oh, this guy dropped. We thought he was top 15. He's available at 25 and our pick is 30.
yeah.
Like let's sacrifice our third round pick to move up three
Well, let's see
spots or
if a guy
whatever.
like Yakimchuk or Boyum drops to 15 or something, or even Berkeley Catton, right? Drops to like around, let's say the Flyers pick at 12. They
Like a
pick the
Travis
guy they
Konechny scenario.
yeah, somebody drops to like 15. They're like, hey, like, you know what? Our pick's like 23rd or something, 24th, 25th. Let's try to move up 10 spots, see if
It's
we can
probably
do
going to
it.
be between 30 and 32 at the rate Florida's
No,
going,
well,
but
yeah, exactly. But hey, never
well,
know.
we might only have we're not going to find out till the end of the first round apparently what happens with our second
The
with the
Columbus pick.
Columbus
Yeah.
second round pick, which would be a high second round pick. That would be a good tool to move up.
Package
Or
that first and the
yeah,
Columbus pick
I
potentially.
don't know if the Flyers necessarily would want to give up their their second first and their second round pick to move
Yeah.
up one spot. I suspect they might want to double because it's all about odds. None of these players are finished products, especially guys beyond in this
Yeah, I
draft
mean,
15. None of them are predictable.
you could move up to grab that guy you like, and you might be a bust. That's
Right.
just the
So
nature of the
like
draft. So
but then I also think of the opposite with like the Flyers drafting Travis Konechny, and because we really liked him, and what we traded in return was I think it was a second round pick. I think we traded our first and a second round pick to move
yeah,
up to get it, and that second round pick took Jeremy Bracco. Toronto took Jeremy Bracco, and he was slated to be a really great player. Turned out to be nothing, like just a
yeah,
good AHL guy.
it can
So
happen.
you know, they, I do, again, I'm not the draft analyst and I'm not a scout for the Flyers and I'm not in those rooms. If I was in those rooms, I'd have probably slightly different opinions. But if I saw my guy, I agree with you, Vasili, I go for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Walk away
especially
with two guys those are my guys. Those are my home
yeah,
runs.
especially if you have them ranked like in the top 10 or something and he
Yeah.
drops, right? Like you never
Right.
know, but we'll have to wait and see. The
I
draft's
mean,
always
they
an
did it
interesting
with
time.
Bjarnason,
Yep, yep.
which was weird because it hasn't panned out. But then they grabbed Zavragan. That's why my whole thing is like pick as many players as you can.
You never know what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Right, right. You never know if you get a Wyatt Johnson in the second round, or whatever. Okay. So I did want to do like a free agency thing, but let's save that for next time. I don't think we've kind of talked about that stuff a little bit too much. Let's get into Phantoms and then
Sure.
the prospects, and then we'll end on some playoff talk. So just a quick update on the Phantoms. They have been officially eliminated. Hershey beat them in the elimination game in game 4. Again, the playoff structure was best of 3, best of 5, best of 5, best of 7, best of 7. In the playoffs, the Phantoms made it to the second round, past the play in. They were playing Hershey, which was arguably the best team in the league. They did put up a good effort. The scoring disparity in the series is not indicative really of how the series went. Peterson had a bad game. He gave up 5 goals on 14 shots in one game. Didn't play well. He did play really well in all the other games. For those who want to shit on him, he did not have like horrible playoffs or anything. They had one bad game. Unfortunately, he had one bad game, which is kind of how Peterson works, from what I noticed. He just every now and then he just has a complete clunker. Um,
That's how some goalies are
yeah, they
sometimes.
lost their final game 5-3. A lot of solid performances all around. Lazinski played really well. I really hope they bring back Lazinski for an AHL role. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do really love him on the Phantoms, especially with ability to be called up. He missed a lot of time due to injury, but he's been like constantly relied upon. Andre had a great season and a great series in general. Tuamala was injured. Rizzo was injured. We didn't see either one of them play. unfortunately in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
you know,
But
he got scratched at one point. I don't know if he
yeah,
entered back in, but that's
he was
not
like
great
kind
to
of in
see.
and out of the lineup. He's a big question mark for how we'll see how he's going to
You know
go
what
into next
though?
system
It
next
happens,
year.
right? He had a
Happens.
killer he had a killer rookie season. The sophomore slump can
You
be
got to
real
be,
for some of these
yeah,
guys. So
yeah.
I
I think
think
you got to be patient.
it's too early to count him out, especially with what he did his rookie
And
year.
and
So
again, the Flyers project him as a bottom six
third,
forward in the
fourth line
NHL.
guy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Not necessarily like a end all be all guy, but he didn't have a great season. But I will say like, and maybe I will say the way they played in the playoffs, they competed hard in a lot of these games. They outshot their competition in majority of these games, regardless of how good. Like they outshot Hershey quite a bit in this
Yeah.
series. So they were on them. You know, Hershey just had the better roster at the end of the day. Um, but I got to say, I'm a little more optimistic about what Lappy was able to do in the playoffs to beat Wilkes-Barre Scranton. And they played really well against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and then have some really good games against the best team in the league. You know, I, I'm I'm in more in wait and see now with Lappy, and I imagine maybe the organization is kind of still in wait and see mode. I'm not like gung ho over Lappy, but I am happy to a
Yeah.
degree with their performance. Not over the moon, but I'm at least satisfied with it to some degree.
Well, I think you have to look at it this way, right? Last year they went to the first round and lost. This year they went to the second round and lost. Technically, there's a progression there, right? They got farther in the playoffs than they did last season. So there is positivity in that, right?
Yeah,
It's like they missed the playoffs, it's not like they lost in the first round
with a
once again.
worse roster this year, I would argue,
Yeah, exactly. I think last year they had a deeper roster, especially with the Nisimov, that
and
was in the
Airson
fold
in
as
net.
well. Yeah, exactly. So I think too, you have to look at it in a sense that there was a point there where they were out of the playoffs, and maybe there was even a chance for them to miss. And we talked about that, and we kind of pondered, well, if they miss, like is LaPerriere on the chopping block? I think you have to give him credit for the fact that he turned that situation around where it looked like they were going to miss the playoffs, and then they actually did make it and ended up going to the second round. And
And
lose to the
upsetting.
best team. Yeah,
Yeah.
upsetting Wilkes-Barre and then losing to arguably the best team in the AHL in Hershey. I think they definitely probably missed Tuamala in that series. Like I think a big factor was the fact that Hershey seemed like they just had more scoring power than the
Yeah.
Phantoms, and missing a guy that was one of your top PP guys like a Tuamala obviously is gonna
One
hurt
of your
you.
best
But
skaters. Yeah.
I think this probably saves Lappy's job, to be honest. The fact they made the playoffs, the fact they got farther than the first round. I think
And
if they
put up
would
a
have
fight.
missed,
Yeah.
yeah, I think if they would have missed, he probably would have been gone. I think this probably um, allows him to stick around for at least one more season. Though I do think, and this is my perspective on it, every coach has his time, right? Like he's been the head coach of the Phantoms now for what? It'll be
3 years.
his third or fourth season coming up, at least, at
I
the
think
very
it's
least,
at least 3. Could
for
be
sure.
4. I'm
Could
forgetting as well.
either way, that's a long time to be a coach. So, I mean, at some point, they're going to have to make a change inevitably. So I wouldn't be surprised even if it's this season, right?
Is
Like some
Scott
this
Gordon
happens.
out
So
there?
I don't know,
He was
but
a good
he was a
coach.
great coach.
He's a
He's a
great
great coach.
AHL coach. Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised he never got another chance in the
NHL.
NHL.
Yeah,
It's
he had
just the nature of the game, I think, right? Like he had a head coaching stint with the Islanders, didn't work out.
where
Went to
is
the
he now?
AHL, put up really good record, but yeah, it sucks. He was always a really nice guy. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm kind of wondering where he's at. Sorry, yeah, finish what you wanted to say.
well, I was just gonna say, like, it's definitely more of a positive spin for the Phantoms to kind of turn it around to make the playoffs. But we'll see what happens with LaPerriere. I think there's nothing set in stone with him, even though they did, technically do better this season than
So
last.
Gordon is an assistant coach with San Jose right now, I believe,
Interesting. All right.
still, which I
Well, you never know, might have a chance to be a head coach with that
of
team
the
at some
Phantoms.
point.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, they did just
with
fire
San
their
Jose.
coach,
That's what
right?
I mean. So you never know.
They did just fire Quinn. So I like Scott Gordon.
Maybe
Seems
they're
like a
like,
good dude.
yeah,
Um,
agreed.
all right. The next topic
He was
we
a
had,
goalie, so I was gonna say he was a goalie. So usually goalies are nice
you got,
guys.
yeah, yeah.
I have bias there, but
So the quick prospect update. So it's really all about London Knights right now.
crazy game last
Yeah,
night.
they're up 3-0 in the series against Oshawa, right?
Yeah, Oshawa Generals.
Oshawa Generals, yeah. Um, it absolutely. So they absolutely demolished Oshawa in the first two games. It was an 8-1 victory and a 9-1 victory. And then game three, Oshawa's up pretty much, the first 40 minutes of the game. I think they were going into the third period up 6-2.
Yeah, 6-2.
And then London just took over, scored 4 goals, scored one goal, scored the tying goal with like less than 3 minutes left in the game, maybe around 3 minutes left in the game, and then went to overtime and ended up just taking it in overtime. And Oshawa, they looked rushed because obviously coming back, going to their next game down 2-1 and getting momentum is a much different vibe than being down 3-0 and blowing a 4-goal lead in the third period. But I will say London, they look like the much better team. Like I missed the beginning of the game. I saw like some of the second and I saw like half of the second period and the third period, and like third period just London just completely took over. And I will say this, from what I saw about Barkey, doesn't look NHL ready to me. Sorry, I know people online saying I just read somebody wrote, "Oh, putting Barkey and Bonk in the back in the OHL is dumb." I don't think it's dumb at all. I think Barkey needs another year.
He's really small, man. Like in the
Yeah,
NHL, he's gonna get eaten alive. Sorry to say, he needs to put a lot of muscle on.
yeah. Cowan,
Like,
on the other hand, he looks like the most NHL ready player.
Well, but
He's dominating.
He's way bulkier, right? Than like just
Yeah,
by looking at Barkey versus him side by side.
yeah.
If you
He's
watch that
bigger.
game. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
but he's also he's like putting up 4 points a game right now in the
yeah,
playoffs.
he's going off. You know what? It's funny to me. I saw so I watched the overtime. I didn't watch the comeback. But it's crazy. Like when you're playing like NHL, like EA Sports NHL or something, and let's say like you played the game all year, you're really good at the game. You're like an online versus, you like go down like 6-1, and then you like storm back. It's like they were almost bored. Like they beat them eight
Oh my
one,
god.
one game, beat them 9-1. They're like, yeah, let's like
Make
let
it
them
make
have
it
it.
interesting. Yeah.
And then let's come back and score 4 straight goals and win in double overtime. But I think after a win like that, it's pretty much set in stone that it's probably over for Oshawa. But yeah, London's they're hungry for the Memorial Cup. They lost last year in the Memorial Cup final. They definitely want to get back there. So at this point, I think it's pretty locked in. They're going to get to that Memorial Cup tournament, and then it'll be up to them whether they get to the finals again and ultimately win. Just to go over Barkey and Bonk. Bonk had points in the game. He had a power play goal, power play assist, and an even strength assist. So 3 points, and all those points came while in the third period when the team was looking to tie the game
I
up.
thought Bonk had 2 goals. Did they take away one of their goals and make it an assist?
Yeah, power play
Okay.
assist. Yeah.
Okay. So he got an assist. It wasn't
Yeah, it was
directly
like
off
a
him.
tip
Okay.
or something like that. But still 3 points, and he's coming through at the most crucial time when the team's down. And
He
they're
looks
kind of
like their
looking to
best
tie it up.
defenseman.
Yeah, agreed. He looks really good. And then Barkey had power play assists, and he had an assist on one of Bonk's or Bonk's goal as well. And the game winner for London was from Henry Brustewicz, I think, if that's how you
Mhm.
pronounce it.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really crazy comeback for London, and that's almost embarrassing in a sense for Oshawa to be up 6-2, and then
Series is over.
especially in a final, right? Like a game that's like the finals of the OHL, for you to lose in that manner is crazy.
Yeah.
To see London come back that way just speaks to how good that team is and
Yeah.
has been all season.
And Barkey has 5 goals, 19 assists, plus 10, 24 points in 17 games. And Bonk, what was it? 7 goals, 9 assists, plus 15, 16 points in 17 games. I do see, I really like Bonk. He had a kind of a real bad turnover at one point. I'm like, oh, you do not do that at the NHL level. Where he threw the puck across the middle, it was whacked down, and they almost took the lead on him. Or they almost beat them in overtime. But I really like what I see from Bonk. He seems more NHL ready than Barkey.
Yeah, that's not surprising to me,
But I
right?
imagine both will be playing in the OHL next year.
No, that's not surprising because like Bonk is a first round pick, right? There's a reason
Yeah.
why Barkey's a third round
He's
pick.
got a lot of tools, that guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to be at the minimum top four
Yeah,
defenseman, right? Like if even if it doesn't pan out and like the offense doesn't translate to the NHL, defensively really sound, really good hockey IQ, knows the position to be in. But yeah, like it's not surprising to me that Bonk's more ready. He was a first round pick. Typically, that's the case. Your first round picks are going to translate to the NHL level quicker than your later round picks.
yeah.
Just how it naturally has been
That's
over
why they're
time. If you
first
kind
round
of look at
picks.
it, pretty
They're
much.
more developed at the time of
Ex-
being drafted too.
yeah, but I mean, Barkey though has had a killer season. I just think for him, it's going to be about bulking up and getting bigger. He's such, even if you see him like in that game yesterday, right? Like you could just, like he looks small even at the OHL level.
Yeah,
So,
I just want to see him dominate the OHL. Like
yep.
he's having a great year, but again, his numbers are inflated because of the team he's on, which is clearly by far the best team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're demolishing their competition at the
Yeah.
finals. So I really want to see him like be the Cowan might graduate to the NHL. And I'd like to see what Barkey can do at being like
Yeah.
his team.
When it's his team offensively. Too.
Like it's gonna be maybe him and Sam Dickinson like leading offensively next year.
Yep.
Maybe Bonk. Bonk is kind of a dark horse for me of a guy who potentially could make the NHL, but I don't see the Flyers rushing him. So even if he's close, I still see them sending him back.
Yeah, because
He'd
what's the
have to be
point?
like this guy's playing all 82 games for the Flyers.
Yeah, because what
Then I
would be
could
the
see him
point?
doing it.
What would be the point for the Flyers? They're really not, looking to make any sort of run or anything. If anything, if you rush him, it could end up hurting his development. So I think
Right.
they're going to try to take the cautious approach, right?
I think both guys are going back to the OHL next year. Unfortunately, they can't play in the AHL. I think
That
AHL would
would
be
be a
ideal
perfect
for both.
place.
Yes,
Yeah.
for both of them, but I think they're both going to be going back
Man,
to the London Knights.
I hate that rule. I
Yeah,
wish
it
they do it,
exists
but
for the
I get it
juniors
from
team.
the
It's you Canadians, you and your rules.
yeah,
I
we
just
we
kidding.
did it. We did
I
it.
just kidding. I just kidding. No, it makes sense. I mean, they want to keep the talent in the league, and they want to, those guys draw tickets. Like people
Yeah,
pay
exactly.
tickets to go see Barkey and Bonk. They
It's
pay
hard
money to see
to
them.
it's hard for these OHL teams to make revenue, right? Like you got to
Right.
think about it sometimes. So if they're losing their players left, right, and center, it's going to make it even harder. So I understand
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's like they develop them and then they just like lose them to the AHL where they're riding a bus anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but it does suck because there's some of these players like Bonk. I think ideally,
Would benefit from the AHL
I think
probably.
Bonk could would be today the way he plays in the Phantoms top four.
For sure, but it would just benefit him to play against men. I think there's not
Yeah,
too much left for him probably
right.
to learn
He's a
at
big
that
kid.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm excited about him. I get more and more excited. He's the type of defenseman like you don't really know. Like this kid might end up being like offensively, he's already exceeded everyone's expectations. So like I don't want to just put like Steve called him a potential number one defenseman. And I do kind of see what he's talking about because the defensive game for it is there.
Yep.
The kid can skate. The kid's got size. I don't know if he's gonna be a number one defenseman, but if he can be a complementary right-handed top pairing guy, it's a big win. Like if you can play Bonk with York, that's pretty awesome, right? And then have like Drysdale with maybe whoever we draft this year. I don't know. But
Yeah, that'd be a best case scenario, that's for sure.
yeah, it's one of those things where I'm feeling very good about that draft in general with Bonk and Mitchkov. I think that's a huge home run so far. Okay, and the last thing is NHL playoff talk. We'll do that quickly because we're approaching 2 hours here, and I'm supposed to go out to dinner, and my roommate's gonna be annoyed. Um, yeah. So round, Eastern Conference, the big one. The game's going on right now. Last I checked, let me double check here. Yeah,
1-0 Boston.
Boston
Yeah.
is up 1-0. Florida up 3-1 in that series. Um, Florida dominated games 2 and 3. With tight game in game 4. Boston dominated game 1, at least on the scoring department. Again, my prediction was Florida would come out of the East. Right now, they are looking like that team. They've just been damn good. We'll see if Boston can survive today. I don't think a 1-0 lead is going to do it with the way Florida's been playing, but pretty series, lots of battles.
Yeah, I would expect
Pure
Florida
hockey.
to take it.
Yeah.
And then the other series we have is Rangers Carolina. Rangers are up 3-2. That's probably the most interesting series for me right now, just because
Carolina.
the Rangers were up 3-0, and it
I
looked like
know.
they might have swept the Canes, but Carolina's kind of storming back.
And going
And
home.
yeah, it's kind of funny I said storming back with the storm surge and all. Didn't really mean to do that, but it
Yeah,
all
you
works
did. Yeah,
out.
you did.
Anyways, yeah, so series is 3-2 now. They're heading back to Carolina here. So it's
Yeah,
going to
with
be
all the
interesting to,
momentum.
yeah, and I think especially the past two games, Carolina's looked like a way better team, especially 5-on-5 from what I've
Yeah.
seen. So they have a lot of the momentum. I really would not be surprised to see them force a game seven. And then at that point, I think the Rangers probably might collapse because like all the pressure's really on them. You're up 3-0, you're at home. The fans are kind of like, you know,
It is very
biting their
tough to win
nails.
4 games in a row, though.
No, of course.
Just even
But
statistically.
wouldn't it be hilarious, like on the 12-year anniversary of the Flyers coming back from 3-0, that Carolina comes back from 3-0 and beats the Rangers? It'd be kind of awesome to see it happen again.
Yeah.
Stuff like
Let's be
that's
honest. We
always
all want to
fun.
see New York lose. Come
Yeah,
on,
but
it's
also just
Philly.
to see that underdog type of situation where
Yeah.
you're down and come back. Like, who doesn't want to see that? And I just want to see game seven. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping Carolina can force that.
Yeah.
And then we go to the West, and Vancouver's up 2-1 against Edmonton. Not gonna lie, I did not see that coming.
I think it's surprising everybody.
I thought Edmonton would have the advantage, and the main reason was that
The goalie.
Vancouver's putting
Yeah.
out their third string goalies in Artur Silovs, and he's playing really well against McDavid and Draisaitl. I would not have expected Vancouver to get even out of the first round if you would have told me that they were
Vancouver's a
putting their third. But yeah, if you would have said, okay, going into the playoffs, Vancouver's going to have their third stringer in versus DeSmith or Demko, I don't know. Like their goaltending is a big part of why they're good. So I think it's just crazy, but it kind of shows that in the playoffs, especially for goalies, if you get on a hot streak and on a heater,
yeah.
right, they can really go far. So it'll be interesting to see if Edmonton comes back. I think I could see that series going 7 games for sure. But Skinner has not been good at all. Like
I be honest with you, I think Vancouver's gonna take it in 6.
wow, okay,
I don't even think
interesting.
it's gonna go 7. I every
I
time I
just think
look at
McDavid, Draisaitl factor, like they're going to really put it all out there, but
yeah,
we'll see.
hopefully you're right for that fan base's sake. But when I watch Edmonton play, I still don't see a team that does the fundamentals well.
They don't have enough depth, man,
Like
for me.
they maybe, but it's Knobloch's their coach, and I like Knobloch, but I don't know. Like if you remove McDavid
How
from
good are they?
Edmonton, how good are they?
Not that good, I don't think. But
Right. Like you could have back in the day when the Penguins were damn good. If you removed Crosby, which
Malkin got better,
happened, the
actually.
team was still really good. I cannot say the same thing at Edmonton. I think a lot of their players benefit from McDavid and Draisaitl
Yeah.
rather than the opposite. And I don't think that they have the type of team that even if they make it to the next round, they're not making it to the finals. And I don't think Vancouver is going to be whoever comes out of the Dallas
No,
Colorado series either.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
I
But
think Dallas
that's,
is. I think it's gonna be Dallas, Florida.
I could definitely see Dallas, Florida. I mean, Dallas, I think Nichushkin, like if you saw the game last night, Dallas won what 5-1? Yeah, they
Yeah,
beat Colorado 5-1. I think that Nichushkin news really took the sails out of
and
Colorado and their
Taves,
locker room.
and
Yeah, Taves as well, but I don't know who it was on Colorado. It's escaping me what player, but they asked him about the Nichushkin news, and he said, "Well, it's unfortunate that he made that choice." Basically, is what the locker room seems pretty disappointed. And obviously, it's a tough situation because addiction is really tough. But
yeah,
you could just see that kind of took the wind out of their sails as a team. I don't know if they bounce back at this point. Like I think
I think
Dallas
they have
probably takes
another
this.
game in them at least.
Maybe I wouldn't be surprised to see Dallas take the series 4-1 after
Could you
that, but we'll
imagine that?
see.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't be surprising to me because it looks like they have them on the ropes. But who knows what's going to happen? Like my initial picks for the Cup were Colorado, Carolina. So for my picks to actually work, I mean, Colorado's going to have to run the table here and win like
and
3 games in a row. Could it happen? They have a real good team, so it's
sure, yeah,
definitely possible. But it's looking like Dallas. Like at this point, I want the final for me. I would love to see it be Dallas, Carolina. Obviously, that hinges on Carolina coming back and then also beating whoever wins the Florida Boston series. But I think that would be a fun one. But I
Yeah.
could totally see Dallas, Florida as
I-
well. Like Florida's a real good team. So
Yeah, and look, I'll be honest with you. I still believe that the Rangers and the Hurricanes both have the ability to beat Florida. We'll see how it comes out. I just think Florida is the biggest, meanest, and they
yeah,
have all the goal scoring. I just don't
and
see a
Bob has
flaw.
been real
Yeah,
good
I
too.
don't see a
So
flaw. I mean, again, Carolina doesn't really have a flaw either, and neither the Rangers, but like I just think Florida's got the slight edge and how well they're playing against Boston. But we'll see. There's still time here. It'd be funny if Vancouver ends up winning and everybody's like, what? You know, like one of those. Um, all right. Well, yeah. I think Dallas is probably gonna win the cup this year. It's gonna after beating Vegas, and then if they beat Colorado and assuming they beat whoever they're playing in the West, like I just the amount of momentum I think you pick up from
how
that. But then
crazy
again,
would it be? How crazy would it be if Dallas went in and then loses to Vancouver with Seelovs in that? Like, I'll just be like, that would be the most like hockey's such an unpredictable sport
I know.
ever outcome. But I
Yeah,
could see that just the way how things go. I could totally see
I
it.
know. I know. Um, but I think Dallas just got a phenomenal team.
Yeah,
Like
their depth is
top,
insane.
top,
And
yeah, depth
even
wise.
even from beginning of the season, like they were picked by many, right, to make it to the finals and win. So it's not really not
They have
surprising
it
if you look at
all.
the team.
They kind of have
Oh
it
yeah.
all. They got the goalie. They got all the defensemen. They got a
Similar
full
team
stack
for
of
me,
sick.
similar depth than like to Vegas when they won last year,
Right.
right? Like
Exactly. And
look
they
at
beat
Dallas's
Vegas.
team. Yeah, look at Dallas's team, forwards and defensemen. Like the pairs just they can roll pairs and forward line just like that. So
Yeah. It feels like
makes sense.
if the actual setup for the playoffs made any sense, like Dallas should have been playing Vegas now, and Colorado should have be playing like Dallas in the Western
Yeah,
Conference
they.
Finals.
I think they need to go back to that 1 versus 8 setup. I think you're just having too many good teams play each other early when they should really be playing like in
Yes.
the conference finals.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. All right, dude, let's call it. Anything you want to tell our audience?
I know, just keep an eye out on flyersdegree.com. We have articles coming out still during the off season. I'm gonna try to have some draft articles coming up just to prepare for maybe who the Flyers might select coming up, like prospect profiles. So keep an eye out for that over the next month as we lead up to the draft, and just continue to support us, right? Because we definitely notice it. We see our numbers going up on the website, on the podcast over the year. So we appreciate that, and we're going to keep bringing the content as we move along here into
Yeah.
next season.
Hell yeah. Well said, my friend. Again, just want to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Give us a rating there if you can. Hit the notification bell for notifications on YouTube. Shout outs to our sponsors, Gym Steaks at 4th and South. Go make sure get yourself a cheesesteak from Gym Steaks now that they're open again. And also Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Make sure to call them for your insurance adjustment needs. Again, thank you all so much for listening. You guys are amazing. Cannot wait to announce 1,000 subscribers. Cannot wait for the draft coverage. We got a lot of stuff coming. We were talking about when we're going to do season grades. We're going to be doing that probably when it slows down. We'll figure it out, but that'll come over the off season too. We'll do like a full retrospect on the season. Again, thank you everybody so much. We love you, and remember, always stay